Hey, hi folks. I'm going to try to give you a little bit of a primer on exactly what's going on here in Italy and Sicily and pretty much the most of the European Union, and why the whole business of attaining dual citizenship or even a resident visa, an elective visa, is now really kind of like a moving target. So bear with me while I give you a little bit of a primer. And by the way, what I say today in 2025 in the springtime may not necessarily be the case by the end of the year or 2026 or 2027, because it is a moving target subject to the whim of the following. Number one, the Italian Parliament, who can make a law and change a law, boom, like that. Or the Ministry of the Interior, which could make a law, an administrative suggestion that is adopted by the consulates all over the place. That's number two. And of course, the Court of Cassation, which is roughly the equivalent of the High Court in the United States. Okay, you've got three different people or entities making law, suggesting law, and as a result, the left hand pretty much doesn't know what the right hand is doing. And that's how it's been. I mean, right now, for example, certain consulates in the United States are interpreting the recent elective visa financial requirements differently. All right, so would you hold on for a second? I'm going to get into you. But the first question I need to answer is, how the heck did this happen? How did this happen? 23 years ago, when I became an Italian citizen, it was easy. It was 6 months start to finish. By the time they did everything, 6 months. I grabbed my paperwork. I was careful about the paperwork. It was precise. There wasn't any problems with it. Once I got my paperwork, I made an appointment with the consulate in Boston. I went in there, boom, and then a few months later, I had my Italian passport. It was simple. It was a nothing, okay? It was simply an administrative exercise. It was far easier 23 years ago to become an Italian citizen than it was, as a matter of fact, to become an American citizen if you were an Italian, all right? So boom, boom, boom. But not too many people took part of it, took advantage of it. Truth be told, the American expats living in Italy is a small group, no more than 15,000. That's between Italy and Sicily. It's not 150,000. It's not like the Romanians, for example, okay? They're all over the place, okay? The Albanians, for example. Those are the two biggest groups. But what happened? How did it change the last 23 years? That's the question. Well, because of juris sanguinis, of course, that's the right to reclaim citizen or have it recognized due to blood. That's what the problem started, okay? Because it didn't start in the United States, despite the fact that there are millions and millions of Americans of Italian extraction who probably could qualify. The problem was pretty much in South America, between Brazil, Argentina, and some of the large countries there, which doesn't have the economic background that the United States does. They began to fill in, and guess what? That became a problem. But I don't want to get ahead of myself here. Here's the problem in a nutshell: the migrants. I remember 10 years ago, Esther and I, we did a video on Operation Mare Nostrum, which was where the Italians Navy was rescuing thousands of people, boat people coming from North Africa, from all the top part of North Africa and also the sub-Saharan countries, coming into Italy with no help with the EU. They were paying for everything. Practically made Italy broke, okay? So what happened was, if that wasn't bad enough, we had COVID, which completely ruined the country financially. You think the United States had an adverse income? There was no checks coming from the government here. We were trapped in our house for 3 months. It was awful. So the Italian government at the time was a center-left government, PD, Christian Democrats, okay? They were very generously giving whatever minor money they had to pay for housing, feeding, clothing, giving health insurance to migrants. Finally, what happened was the political situation shifted and the center right took over. Actually, it was kind of like the hard right. It was this guy by the name of Salvini. And he was tough. They were stopping boats, and migration here was stopping. You had the Pope screaming about it, saying, hey, it's not right, it's not right. But Salvini persisted, okay? He called a snap election, and he didn't win. It's not that he lost, he didn't win, but more moderate conservatives kind of like took over, okay? I think you want to call them moderate conservatives. They're not fanatical fascist, okay? Now, I'm not saying that Salvini was a fascist, but it's not. There are different levels of conservatism. It's just like there are different levels of liberalism in Italy. Truth be told, there's over 60 parties, and they make factions up. So Meloni came in, okay? And she's done a good job. She's stabilized the finances of Italy. This week, the big thing is that she got a 30 or 40 billion euro investment from one of the Arabic countries, for example, okay? So she came, and she's wildly popular, all right? And she came in, and in order to get Salvini's group on board, she appointed him, or he was made the Ministry of the Interior, which is the, I guess you could say, the cabinet level position, pretty much, that is in charge of migration, all right? Now, note I'm using the word migration because that's what's happened, exactly what's happened with those in the United States and Canada and Australia who want to come to Italy and live here. It's trapped as a subcategory of migration, which is now governed by primarily the Ministry of the Interior, period. And now you've got the laws coming in to tighten it up, to tighten up the laws. So that's pretty much like a quick little overview of what's happening. Of course, I could say, getting back to the South American problem, so to speak, they're trying to get so many people in here that they overwhelmed all the consulates in the United States. Not only the United States, but in all their old individual consulates, especially in the United States. A lot of them had relatives. They quickly moved to the U.S. in the southern states, established address there, and bombed, places like Texas, places like Florida, the southern states, where they couldn't keep up. I mean, nowadays, if you try to get an appointment, for example, in Houston, you can't. They're not taking applications. A lot of them aren't taking applications, or they're giving 4 or 5 year wait times even to get an appointment. So it's very disconcerting. It's very disconcerting for those who have done all they possibly can to become a citizen in Italy. So now let's talk about some of the issues over here, the nuts and bolts issues over here that's affecting this thing. Number one, do Italians really want to have American Italians become citizens? That's the big issue. That's one of the issues that people talk about. Or is it simply, I guess you could call having an Italian passport a show and tell for some? That's a big issue. Some Italians, especially in the north, they're like, why do you want to become a citizen? Are you going to live here? Oh, you just want the passport? What are you going to do for the country? And coupled with the anti-migration issue is a growing problem here, all right? Some people don't care about that. Some people say, no, you belong here, you're our blood, etc. See, here's the big difference. In Israel, the American Jewish communities wag the dog over there. Okay? They have the finances, they have the money, they have the political power, they have the lobbyists to get things done. Okay? American Jew, if your mother was a Jew, I think it's the mother, I think it is, was a Jew, you're a Jew. Boom, boom, boom. See you later, you're an Israeli citizen. Is that like that in Italy? No. It's not like that in Italy. Here you don't have the tail wagging the dog. It's not happening. We have a very inept, flaccid lobbying group that's worse than zero practically, effectuating laws on behalf of Italians trying to get citizenship in Italy. That's a huge problem. Well, what about all these Italian groups that are all over the place? The this, the that, the Italy's, the Cyberboop, they wear sashes, they go to parties, you see them all over the internet. They're doing stuff affecting Italian Americans in the United States, okay? But they're virtually powerless to effectuate any type of political juice in Italy the way American Jewry does to Israel. We need to have, or you need to have, I guess collectively we need to have some juice, some strength with lobbyists. So one of the things I was suggesting about the last couple of years, I've really been thinking about it. We need to have lobbyists. We need to have lobbyists that are in Rome and are twisting the arms and etc. We need cooperation of the American ambassador to Italy, who, by the way, I understand is an Italian. We need that type of stuff to happen. All right, so is it going to happen? I don't think it's going to happen. I got to be honest with you. So now I'm going to wait 1 second, and I'm going to talk to you about another issue, okay? So go have a cup of coffee. I'll be right back. You know, one of the most unfair things that started in 1948 litigation was the fact that women born before 1948, which was the adoption of the Italian, ratification of the Italian Constitution, were discriminated against. They couldn't pass their Italian ancestry onto their, their progeny, so to speak. So as a result, brilliant lawyers in Milano and Rome sued the Ministry of the Interior based on discrimination, sex discrimination, gender discrimination, so to speak, and they won. And they won a ton of cases, and they're still winning them, okay? That could be a viable option for you if you have a female line, okay? As you're going to see in a little while, the other ones are getting clouded. What does it cost to have a 1948 case? I would say roughly between $6,000 and $10,000, number one. And then number two, probably take you 3 or 4 years by the time you're done soup to nuts. There are some pretty good outfits out there that are doing it. What's the bad part about it? Bad part about it is that the courts kicked it out of the two major courts in Rome and Milan, and now these cases are heard in the town or the district where the descendant was from, okay? Which is terrible, because those judges over there, they're not as sophisticated, they move around a lot, they don't want to take it, they don't know the law, so to speak. It's a highly technical area of law, but it could be done, okay? And then the second thing is, of course, you have to come here, at least, you know, despite what people are saying, you have to come here and you have to do something over here. But it could be done. So like I said, $6,000 to $8,000, maybe $10,000 if you have a problem on your paperwork. It's a lot of money, huh? Well, actually, it's not. It is a lot of money, but actually it's not. Why do I say that? Well, try to become an American citizen from the European Union. You're going to lay out between $10,000 and $25,000, depending on your case, and it's going to take you a ton of time as well. So there's a trade-off over here. You want to become an Italian citizen? Well, guess what? It's a foreign country a foreign country. It's not like the little Italies in the United States or your local Sons of Italy. It's a different country, a different planet, and you have to pay. So the 1948 cases are still vibrant. They're still going on, but who knows how long it's going to, if there's going to be a change in that. But for now, I haven't heard a word about it. There isn't any changes that I have heard about for that. All right, so that's one way. All right. Now, for those of you who are applying, and this was heartbreaking, in October, the so-called minor issue came up. See, there was a disparity between Italian law, going back to the year 1912, and the court finally tried to put them both together. So now what happens is, if you're, let's talk about your grandfather or your great-grandfather. Let's say it's your grandfather came to the United States, and he was an Italian citizen, and had your father, okay? But he wasn't yet an American citizen. That was golden. You were in like Flynn, okay? If your grandfather never naturalized into a United States citizen, or naturalized after your father was born, you were fine, in like Flynn. The minor rule came up to kind of square it away with the 1912 confusion, and said, well, if you're a minor, if your father was a minor while your grandfather became a citizen, if he hadn't reached the age of either 20 or 21, sorry, it's cut. The line is cut. All right? It's bizarre, but that happened in October of 2024, and it has destroyed the dreams, the hopes of thousands of Americans who want to come here. All right? Now, people are saying, especially in the chat rooms on citizenship stuff, litigation. We're going to litigate it. Well, guess what? If you litigate it, it's going to take forever, okay? Forever for that thing to get litigated. And who the heck knows if you're going to win or not? Really? You're going to litigate it? Litigate it. Go ahead. But it'll be 4 or 5 years, minimum. 4 or 5 years, all right? So this minor rule, it looks like, unfortunately, it's here to stay. So if you have that issue, then you're going to have to consider something else, all right? So now let me talk to you about something else, all right? We'll talk to you now about options, all right? Well, what options do I have if I want to come to Italy? Well, you have to get a visa, all right? The long and the short of it, there are several different types of visas you can get. Try to find a job in Italy beforehand and get a work visa. That's typically what people do. They try to do it. If you're a highly educated person, for example, or have a unique skill, for example, you should be able to get something. However, if you don't have those skills, or if you're a retiree, those are the ones, that's where the problems are coming up now. Because lots of people want to come here on this elective residency visa. Now, before I talk to you a little bit about the elective residency visa, let me just give you a history, all right? That visa was for people who were going to retire in Italy. Originally, that was the concept of that. Okay, you worked all your life. You have some money in the bank. You've got investment income, and you want to have, I guess you could say, la dolce vita, which really it isn't, but la dolce vita in Italy, all right? So 31,000 euro, no problem. For two people, 38,000 euro, okay? And then you had to do a few things. You had to get a lease. You had to get insurance. You have to make an appointment to the consulate. You have to make sure, a few things like that. Make sure your other spouse doesn't have a criminal record, et cetera, et cetera. And then that just changed. Okay, the 31,000 for one, 38,000 for two changed, because for 31,000 and a few CDs in the bank or an annuity or so forth, you should have been able to be okay. But those numbers that were put down, 31,000, those numbers were put down over 20 years ago. And if you do the math, Google how much is 31,000 euro worth in today's dollars, for example, or euro, you're going to see that for two people, it's going to be in the $50,000 range, and one person, and for two people, it's going to be damn close to $61,000. So what did the EU do? They made the adjustment, and now the requirement is 31,000 euro per person for the husband and the spouse, etc. So now that is just going to annihilate another group, okay? This is the group of pensioners who, maybe they have 40,000 combined, all right? That's going to be insufficient, all right? So as I speak to you today, there's just a lot of areas here that are minefields, all right? And it breaks my heart when a lot of my friends and clients call me up that they've done all this work, blah, 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 and now, what can I do? All right? I mean, basically, that's what the thing is. But I think the visa route is okay. I just recommended somebody yesterday. I had a discussion with that person. They were knocked out by the minor rule. And I was talking to them, and I says, well, what about your wife? No, the woman was knocked out. I says, what about the husband? Well, I don't know. He's Irish and he's Dutch. So I said, just for the hell of it, I said, Dutch, that's part of the EU. Maybe on the other side, you could qualify. What do you care whether it's you become an EU citizen on a Dutch passport or the Italian passport? It's the same passport. You get a passport from the Netherlands, you could move here. How does that sound? So and I think number one is you have to learn as much as you possibly can. Okay? Now, half the information I see on these groups, Facebook groups, is inadequate and is half the time wrong. Okay? You need to do your own research, and it really starts with you physically going to an embassy and demanding there, hey, I want to become a citizen. I can't get a hold of you on the phone. I want to see the ambassador. I want to see the consulate official. And you raise hell. Why not? You can do it. The other way is band together, okay, nationwide if necessary. Hire a lobbying firm, 2 lobbying firms, okay? There would be strength in numbers. Get the media involved, okay? How about a nice story in the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Boston Globe, LA Times? How do you think the consular officials, who are very cognizant of having a positive image in the United States, are going to see scandalous stories like what's happening right now for those who want to become a citizen of the EU? So anyways, that's my overview of it. I feel bad for you folks that are getting cut out. The elective residency visa is a good way. Or marry an Italian. That's an easy way. Marry an Italian. Get a job here. Okay? Volunteer and get a non-profit visa. They have those types of things. They have nomad visas. There's a bazillion ways that you can kind of skin the cat and get here. So anyways, like I said, what I'm saying to you today in 6 months or a year could be invalidated. But at least for today, and for my friends who are watching this video, it's a little bit of background. Okay? Ciao. God bless you.